Hello, everyone. My name is Patrick Rolland. I am the brand manager here at Paid Memberships Pro. This is the first webinar I'm doing, and I'm really excited to talk to all of you. Our goal here is to bring people on who can tell you awesome things about how you can improve your membership sites, especially with Paid Memberships Pro. So we are here today talking about abandoned carts for membership sites. We actually experimented with this a few weeks ago on our own site, and we have some of that data that we're going to share with you. And we wanted to bring on Dave from Recapture to tell you what you can do to get more people through your checkout so you can make more money and have a successful business. In just a second here, I'm going to bring on Dave. But first, let me tell everyone a little bit about him. Dave Rodenbaugh is the founder of Recapture, an abandoned cart and SMS email marketing service for a whole bunch of services: WooCommerce, Shopify, BigCommerce, Magento, Easy Digital Downloads, and of course, Paid Memberships Pro. He has been a part of the WordPress space since 2011. He's the co-host of the Rogue Startups podcast and Big Snow TinyConf West, which is the best conference because you can ski and learn about WordPress and business at the same time. And now he works exclusively on e-commerce projects and has a passion for making merchants of all kinds more successful with their stores. So with that, Dave, why don't you tell us everything we ever wanted to know about abandoned carts?
Well, thank you for that very kind introduction, Patrick. And thank you for having me here. I'm very excited. We have got a lot of cool stuff to cover today, so let's jump right in. All right, let's just confirm. Patrick, are we good on the slides there? Can they see them on the live stream?
Your slides look beautiful. If anyone has any problems, let me know, but your slides look beautiful.
Fantastic. All right, as Patrick said, my name is Dave. I am the founder of Recapture, and today we are going to talk about the insider secrets of abandoned carts. These are lessons that we've learned from over 5,000 customers that have come in and used Recapture since 2015 here. And there is a special bonus here. If you watch this all the way until the end, we have something as a special gift to you. So thank you for sticking around until then. We hope there's lots and lots of stuff that you learn about and really enjoy and take away for your own membership site here. And with that, let's just jump right in. So I have a story to tell first. I like to always start with a good story. So this gentleman right here, his name is John Henry Patterson. And aside from looking like the Bond villain from an 1800s version of James Bond, he actually was a very typical guy for his time. He was born in 1844, Dayton, Ohio, worked at his father's sawmill, did chores at his house, walked uphill to school both ways in the snow, usual stuff for that time, right? Well, after attending Dartmouth, John Patterson went and started a supply store for coal miners. Great idea, fantastic timing on this one. Ohio was having a coal mining boom. They really needed this. He had a steady supply of customers, and there was only one small problem with that. John Patterson was doing this, but unfortunately, he wasn't making much money. And when he went back to check out why, it kind of brings us to this weird question that I want to ask all of you now. Would you actually steal from this man? And the reason I ask this is that employee theft was unbelievably common in the mid-1800s. So if you're doing business in the mid-1800s, imagine the following. So you're taking money from people and you're writing up paper receipts. There isn't any software to handle any of this. Nothing is tracked automatically. Nothing is being monitored. There's no video cameras. So unless you're like standing over your employees all the time, looking over their shoulder, or managing all the transactions yourself, which isn't really scalable, then basically you're open to employee theft. And it was killing his business. He was losing huge amounts of money. The problem for John Patterson was something that really, really just ate him to the core, and he had to try to figure something out. So we'll get back to John here in just a second. But let's talk a little bit about your own abandoned cart problem on your membership site. So first of all, let's just address the question of the elephant in the room. Do membership sites even have abandoned carts? Isn't abandoned carts just an e-commerce thing and membership sites are a totally different animal? Well, it turns out the answer is yes, abandoned carts happen on membership sites just like they do on all other e-commerce sites. Membership sites are really just a special consideration of what you're already doing in any e-commerce site. So whether you're selling subscriptions, whether you're selling products or digital downloads or any of these sort of things, people can come, look at your stuff, add it to a cart, and then never check out. That's an abandoned cart here, all right? So this data that you're seeing on this screen right here, this is actually taken with permission from the Stranger Studios site run by Kim and Jason and Patrick. And this is their abandoned cart rate from just 2 weeks of having our plugin showing up on there. So you can see 60% and over 1,600 carts just not making it to checkout. So yeah, there's a problem here, right? So the question really is, how bad is this situation that we're facing in general? And another spoiler alert here, it's pretty bad. If we're talking about e-commerce as a whole here, the abandoned carts are considered to be a huge problem. So in 2010, Forrester Research went out and actually tried to measure this. They figured out what was the total amount of loss due to abandoned carts in e-commerce. And they came up with a number, and it's a big, scary number. $18 billion is lost every single year. And this stat is over 11 years old. So we know that this has to be even bigger now. This was before Shopify was really big. This was before WooCommerce was taking over and had a massive presence in the e-commerce market. This is back in the days when Magento was a big cart and other Volusion was a big cart. And these platforms have shrunk quite a bit. And now we have all this new stuff. So this is not getting smaller over time. Add to that, the average rate of abandonment has done nothing but go up for the past 13 years. It's gone up 17% from 60% to almost 70%. And there's been some spikes up and down, but the general trend is in the wrong direction here. And it turns out that all these mobile devices that we love so much and that everybody keeps talking about are going to make e-commerce better and easier, they're actually making abandoned carts even worse. If we look at desktop versus tablet versus mobile, the desktop abandoned cart rate, according to Statista in 2021, was about the average that we saw already, which was 69.75%. Tablet was almost 15% higher, and mobile was 20% higher, 15% higher. No, I can't do my own math. 25% higher. All of these numbers are terrible. This is not what you want because mobile is not going to improve things here when we're doing checkouts. So why are they actually leaving all the carts? This is coming from Baymard, which is like one of the largest houses of e-commerce data and statistics that you can find out there. I've got the link at the top if you want to check this out yourself. But basically, if we take all of the people that are abandoning their carts and we take out the huge chunk of those that we know are just flat out not interested. So those are the tire kickers, the ones who weren't really going to check out. But the ones who were pretty serious, if we take that remaining bit and we look and ask them, why is it that they are abandoning? Here's the reasons that they give us for all of e-commerce. The costs are too high. I have to build an account in order to finish the checkout. The checkout takes too long. The pricing's not clear. I don't trust you. All of those things are big deals. Well, what about membership sites? So I went and dug up a bunch of information about what are the top reasons that people don't complete their membership checkout? Well, there's too many plans and prices in there. There's monthly versus yearly pricing. You're creating indecision with your customers. There's too many fields to complete. The discount code field causes them to go run off and look around for a discount code that applies to your site. You don't have a clear call to action, or the value of what it is that you're offering isn't something obvious that your customer is ready to pay for, or they don't trust you. Guess what? That's the same stuff that's going on with a membership site as it is a regular e-commerce site. So if we sort of bucket all of this down to three basic reasons, I figured that there's really three things that we need to look at and address on any site when we have an abandoned cart problem. You've got customer confusion going on, you've got cost shock, and there's just too much pain for them to deal with to want to check out. So the real question is, What do we do when we have these unhappy customers? Because unhappy customers always leave. So how do we get out of this mess? The answer is it's a combination of things. So there's really two sets of things that you could really address for abandoned carts. I'll bucket them into the hard version and the easy version. So the hard version is things like revamping your checkout and reducing the number of fields and increasing the speed of your site and doing performance analysis and stuff like that. Those are important. Those are things you should probably do, but they're not necessarily the first things I would do to attack. So instead, I would look at the easy ones, and the easy ones are what we're going to talk about here today and how we can actually solve this problem with some very simple psychology and reminders. And this leads to persuading people to actually complete. And this stuff is more powerful than you think it is. A lot of people will go to all the technical stuff all the time. They'll start working on their site and digging that up because they're more comfortable with that. But it turns out this stuff is probably going to drive more in terms of sales and bring customers back to complete your purchase. All right. So we have to remember here, we're dealing with messy, complex people. And so we have to meet them where we're at, where they're at, where we're all at, right? And that's what this is going to be about. So let's talk about the secrets that get us to these steps, all right? So first, secret number one, follow-ups and reminders actually work. This is something I think people are deeply uncomfortable about for whatever reason. I've never been exactly sure about it. I think it's kind of in the same vein as being like a public speaker. We're all afraid of it, and then once you get some practice at it, it's a lot less scary. So let's address this, another elephant in the room that I see a lot. There is an irrational fear that merchants of all kinds have about sending what I call too much email, which when I ask them, it kind of really implies sending any email at all. They're afraid that they're bugging their customers, that the customers don't like email. They're not going to buy from me if I send them email. I'm sorry to say all of this is entirely wrong. It's complete BS. And I have the receipts to prove it here. So let me show you some statistics that actually disprove this completely. All right. So here are some stats that I have from Recapture. So this is an abandoned cart email sequence. And if you look at the data that's sitting here, it looks really good, right? I have a single campaign sent to 3,500 people. The conversion rate is almost 11%. They recovered $324,000. All of those numbers are really good, right? Well, what if I were to tell you that was the first email of a 3-email sequence, and if I add the 2 other emails that were sent after it, they actually did 153% more revenue than they did from just the first email. So sending that first email was amazing, but sending 2 more than doubled the revenue that they were getting back. All right, not convinced? I've got an actual membership site sequence here. So this one has some amazing conversion rates here, and they're relatively new on the platform, so I didn't have like 3,000 sends to show you. But they definitely have enough for me to say with great confidence that they are definitely getting some statistical significance out of their results. So their first email is only making them 1,200 New Zealand. But if we add in their next 2 emails, it's over 10,000 New Zealand. That's 881% increase over just sending that first email alone. The conversion rates on these are outstanding. So clearly those that are on these membership sites are converting when you ask them to come back. So a Wayne Gretzky quote that I just can't ever get out of my head when I talk about this stuff. You miss 100% of the shots you're not taking. If you're not following up with people, you're missing out on these exact sorts of things. If somebody wants to buy from you and you send them a reminder and they actually buy, you're not bugging them. Like that's an irrational fear you have to get out of your head. Remember, we're dealing with messy, complex humans here. There's all kinds of stuff going on. And so you need to send reminders and bring them back from this distracting world that they're constantly being hit with. So in general, the data shows in Recapture that if you're sending 3 emails, on average, you're going to increase your returns at least 100% over sending just 1. All right, that's secret number 1, reminders. Let's talk about secret number 2, psychology. So a little bit of a sidebar here. There is a fantastic book that I highly recommend that if you're any kind of an entrepreneur and you're running a business, you really want to read this book by Dr. Robert Cialdini. It's called Influence, The Principles of Persuasion. And interestingly enough, this book has been around since 1984. So you would think that a book that old would no longer hold relevance in the modern e-commerce world. Well, Dr. Cialdini's work basically distilled the deep human psychological influences that we're all constantly under, and we might not necessarily be aware of these things here, but he pulls them out, he gives examples, and over time, as he's revised the book, he updates the examples. And that's the funny thing about this book. The examples change, but the fundamental principles that he talks about here don't. He started out with 6 principles, and he added a 7th one, which I will mention here today, and that's unity. That's really the only thing that's changed about his work in over 35 years. So that's pretty impressive. We as humans are surprisingly consistent here. So let's just talk real briefly about this. What are these 7 principles here, and why do we care about it? All right, so the first principle here is reciprocity. Basically, if you do something for me, I suddenly feel obligated to turn around and do something for you in return. There is this sense that we get in our psyche about not wanting to be indebted to somebody else, okay? So we'll talk about how we can use reciprocity in emails a little bit later. Second one here is commitment. So if you make a public commitment to something, what you are saying is that you are basically trying to broadcast that you want to be this kind of a person. And as a result of doing that, it turns out that you're more likely to do whatever it is that you've actually committed to, because you want to be consistent above everything else. And so this is the reason that when we hit New Year's resolutions, we'll go out and say, hey, I'm going to work out. And the ones that say, you know what, I'm going to work out, I'm posting on social media every single day a picture of me going to the gym. If you start doing that and you stick with it for a little while, you're going to find that you're more likely to go work out because of that. You want to be seen as consistent. So this is an example of what that looks like. All right. Social proof. We're all pretty familiar with this because if you shop on Amazon, the first thing that you do when you go and look at something is you check the reviews. I want to know, is this product garbage or is it something that I can trust? People observe whatever anybody else is doing, and then if they believe that, then they're going to do it themselves. We want to make safe choices. That's exactly what this stuff is doing for us. All right. Authority. We tend to trust somebody who is an authority figure. And an authority figure could be a lot of different things. It could be somebody with high power, high status, high form of education, somebody who's an expert, somebody who has a lot of experience. What's interesting is that if you take the same information with 2 people and you put those words in an expert's mouth and in a random person's mouth, the people will believe the expert more often than they will the random person, even if it's the exact same information. So authority actually has persuasive qualities to it. All right, liking. This one is kind of interesting because at first you would say, okay, well, we trust people more when we like them, right? Think about all the people that you trust in your life. Chances are you probably like them. But the interesting piece about this is if somebody is telling us something that is very trustworthy and we don't like them, we actually distrust that information even though it's correct. So likability becomes an important thing that we want to try to come through with when we're doing our emails here. So we'll get into an example of what that looks like. Last couple of tactics here. So scarcity, this is fear of missing out. When something isn't available, you want it more. The grass is greener on the other side of the fence, right? If we can't easily get it, we want it. And then the last one here is unity. This one, this is the reason that you join things like Facebook groups. So let's say you're a CrossFit enthusiast, or let's say you like to ride ATVs, or you're really into sports of some kind. All of those things become part of your identity, and you will implicitly bond with somebody else. If you meet a random person in another party that is also a CrossFit enthusiast, you're going to have a shared bond as a result of that experience. And it basically gives you a reason to hang out with that other person. So this is what we call unity. This is where you get cliques. This is where you have in-group versus out-group behavior. This is how you identify with other people that you want to hang out with. So it turns out unity is an extremely important thing that you can leverage to try to make somebody want to purchase. And we'll get into a specific example of that in our emails. But as a side note, I have just basically glossed over in very, very brief form about 400 pages worth of really detailed research, notes, examples, and some really compelling writing. So if you want to get more of this, please read his book. It's totally worth it in any form that you can possibly get. All right. So what the heck does this have to do with abandoned carts? We've talked about all of these things here. So how can we leverage these individual tactics when we start talking about abandoned cart emails? If I want to use reciprocity, I can offer my customers something for free. So I'm giving them something of value, which then makes them feel obligated to do something for me in return, which would be purchase or complete the checkout or buy that membership, right? All of those things can happen. And you can do reciprocity in a lot of different ways. You can give them a link to a special video. You can give them a link to an ebook, a case study, a coupon. All of these things are forms of reciprocity. Social proof. This one's pretty obvious, right? Show reviews and testimonials. So if you want to make sure that somebody trusts you more, show them that other people have already done this, that they liked what they bought, and that they got a lot out of it too. That makes somebody else feel like you're the safe choice. Authority. So this one doesn't necessarily apply to everyone in the same way, but there's a clever way you can actually do authority too. So maybe you've got somebody like Tim Ferriss who can actually go out and promote your book or your site. Most of us don't. I certainly don't. And if that's the case, you can actually do things like case studies and other data that have authority, and that authority backs up what you're saying. So there's kind of two different ways that you can use authority right here, either from trusted sources or from trusted people. Liking. So this one, like I said, is really important because remember, if somebody doesn't like you, they don't trust you. So how can you actually make people like you? Well, there's lots of things. You can read the famous book by Dale Carnegie, and there's tons of examples in there, but just a couple that I can throw out here. So use humor. People like to laugh, and if you're making them laugh, then you become instantly more likable. If you have a story about your membership site, about your business, your journey as an entrepreneur, any of those things, tell that story. Like, give them a reason to connect with you and want to be part of your business. This all makes you more appealing. Scarcity, there's lots of different tactics on this. You've probably seen this a lot. Fear of missing out is very strong. So you can say, hey, we've got low inventory, or the sale ends soon. Those are ways to induce scarcity, right? And lastly, one that's really good here is unity. And that is, show them how your product or service makes them part of something they are either already a part of or something that they want to be in. Remember that CrossFit example? So if you're selling CrossFit services, or you're talking about, the top 100 ways that you can be the best CrossFit athlete ever, then your language, your emails, your visuals, your pictures should all reflect that, so that you indicate, hey, I'm a CrossFit person too. I know all these things about CrossFit. Wouldn't you like to be part of this group as well? That's what unity is about. All right, bottom line for psychology here. You're in the job of persuasion, whether you like it or not. Your job is to convince customers to get off the fence. There's likely a reason that they're stuck on the fence there. It could be any of those reasons that we talked about in the abandoned cart there. They don't trust your site. They don't trust you. They're not really sure. The pricing, all of these things give them reasons to hesitate. So your job is to figure out what those hesitations are and turn them into emails that you can use to break those hesitations and those objections down. okay? And we want to do this ethically. Like everything that I just talked about here, this is not the kind of scummy stuff that you see from the internet marketing crowd, okay? We're not trying to use high pressure tactics and all of these other things that they would typically employ. This is just who we are as humans. We're wired to think this way. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with you appealing to somebody else's good nature in an ethical way, okay? So influence is not a dirty word here, and it's going to be your most important tactic to combat what you're seeing with abandoned carts on your site. All right, so we've talked about reminders, we've talked about psychology. Now we combine these for some magic. Remember this here? This was our starting slide, reminders, psychology, and persuasion. It turns out this is actually a formula. If we take reminders and we add psychology into those reminders, you get persuasion for your customers, okay? So how do we do this? In Recapture, I came up with a little mnemonic that I call RPC. So we use a 3-email sequence, and in that email sequence, we send out one and we remind them about their purchase. We send out a second one to persuade them to try to complete their purchase. And then the last one, we try to close it. Like we just basically push for the sale, and then that's it. So we're not being overly bugging about it. And at the same time, we're not being really timid and meek either. Like we're giving them some real chances. So let's talk about what that actually looks like. So email number 1. Remember, we're dealing with busy, distracted people here. So the reminder email is exactly that. It's just a quick memory jog. Say, hey, you got this thing? We left it behind. Maybe you want to come finish and check it out, right? So there's 2 techniques that we find of those 7 that I just talked about that work really well in this email. The first one is liking, and that is the great time for you to talk about your company's history, your mission, your passion, your story. Why does this membership site exist? What is it they're going to get out of it? Like, give them a reason to want to do that, okay? You have to connect with them on a personal level. Personal emails work really well. Second one is unity. So you have to connect with them as part of an in-group. So if you're doing a membership site that's about some business techniques that you are the known expert of, then you're going to have to show them that you are part of that group and that they want to be part of that group. And you have to use language that shows this, that demonstrates this, okay? That's going to create that in-group connection. So here's an example. This one is from ThinkGeek, which unfortunately is no longer in business, but their email is really awesome. So I always love to go back to this because it was really effective. So this here is actually using both of those 2 techniques I just talked about, likability and unity. So here they're using humor. So, and they're also basically saying, all right, if you're a Lord of the Rings nerd, you're really going to get this. And generally, a nerd in general is going to already know about Lord of the Rings humor and Star Trek humor and Star Wars humor. So ThinkGeek leverages all of that stuff here. In this case, they're doing specific language around Lord of the Rings. So that's how they demonstrate unity. Hey, we're Lord of the Rings nerds too. Here's a funny joke about the ring, you know, here's my precious, that kind of stuff. So this is a great tactic, and it definitely helps people connect with you, your business, and your service. All right, email 2. So now you give them a little bit of space, you let them think about it. Now it's time to push a little bit harder. Not too much, just a little bit. All right, so now we need to increase trust, and we have to address objections. What are the 2 best ways to do that? Social proof and authority. So this is where you dump in things like your customer testimonials, your reviews, social media quotes, basically anything from anybody else to convince somebody that you are exactly what you've represented yourself as, that you're not a scammer, you're not a fly-by-night business. The product will do what it is that you've told them it will do. All of this needs to be in one of those kind of forms. And you can appeal to skepticism that they might have by using your expertise and answer FAQs. So here's another example of authority. You could take an FAQ and basically preemptively answer what you know are the top 3 questions that every single person checking out of your membership site does. So you could throw those right into an email And they may have that in the back of their mind. They may not even be consciously aware of it, but the fact that you ask it and answer it will immediately take that down as a psychological barrier. All right, let's talk about an example. So this one right here is from Dollar Shave Club. And if you're not familiar with Dollar Shave Club, they basically became an internet sensation because of their very irreverent video that they used to promote themselves. So it was the founder in this warehouse with all these really sort of cheesy props and characters. And it basically is just weird and funny, like it was unexpected at the time. So their email sequence basically reflects all of that. They also are irreverent on here. And what I couldn't show you at the top of this email because it was too tall is they've got some rando person dressed in a dog suit, and this person is called Chuck. So they said, you should trust Chuck. So they're kind of making a joke on authority here. So, they're actually leveraging likability and a faux authority at the same time. But down below that here, they're saying this: don't trust Chuck, trust one of these satisfied members. So now they got 3 testimonials. And I, to this day, still can't tell you if these testimonials are real, they're fake, or they're somewhere in between. They could have been real customers with real pictures and real names, but they made up the stuff in here and got permission to do it. I don't know. It doesn't really matter because it fits into the brand of Dollar Shave Club. And that's part of the beauty of this email right here. They found a way to do the social proof and the authority all in a way that fits with their brand. So you can do something like that with your own site too. All right, last email. This is the part where we actually want to close them. This is, you offer them the final reminder, and possibly, if it's appropriate to whatever it is that you're doing, this is when I would suggest offering a discount. So the 2 techniques that we find that work best here: scarcity and reciprocity. So you want to tell them it's going to end soon, we don't have many left, etc. Or you also want to go and offer them something for free. So that's where the discount comes in, right? Great example of this, Birchbox. They're a very minimalist brand that sells a bunch of home goods. And this is basically almost the entire content of their last email. And it does exactly these 2 things here. So finish your order before the items sell out, there's scarcity, and get 10% off your order, there's reciprocity. All right. And this email converts pretty well for them. All right. What about our friend John Henry Patterson? Let's talk about him for a minute. So remember, John Henry Patterson, employees are stealing left and right from him. Well, it turns out that he heard of this invention called Ritty's Incorruptible Cashier. And it was invented by a gentleman by the name of James Ritty, who happened to be a fellow resident of Dayton, Ohio. And Patterson went and bought 2 of these things for $50 each. As soon as he put those in his store, overnight, theft disappeared. Basically, this was the very first cash register that ever came out. Patterson loved it so much, he actually went to Ritty and bought his patents out and started the National Cash Register Company, which you might remember by the moniker of NCR. About a year after he did that, NCR had over 1,000 employees and was one of the largest companies in America at the time. So basically, Patterson saved his store by introducing something that was entirely automated. The cash register now made it so his transactions and his receipts could all be fully tracked by this machine in a way that he didn't have to track himself. So this brings us to secret number 4 for abandoned carts, and that is you've got to automate this process. You cannot do this individually, one at a time. It's just too tedious. It's too manual. Okay, so this is exactly why we built Recapture. We were founded in 2015, and we've supported a whole variety of platforms over the years here. We just added Paid Memberships Pro in July 2021. But we've had membership sites on here. We had Restrict Content Pro back in 2019. So we definitely get WordPress. We definitely get membership sites here. And a service like ours is really built around the whole life cycle of email. We handle all the gory details for you. We send all the emails outside of your WordPress install, all the things as best practices you just wouldn't want to do on your own site. Okay. So I mentioned membership sites on Recapture. So what does that actually look like? So right now, if I go back and looked at all of the membership sites on Recapture, I'm seeing that sites are recovering between almost a little over 9% to up to 32% of their total revenue. So that means if they're making $1,000 a month, they're getting, or $10,000 a month, they're getting another $933 to $3,200 in addition to what they've already made. And this is basically just turning on and sending some emails. Now, you might ask, how do people respond to those emails? Well, it turns out membership sites have some of the highest open and click rates on Recapture of anything. Like, I've never seen it better with any other platform or any other store than I see with membership sites. So emails are having between 37 and 60% open rates. A 40% open rate is considered outstanding. The average open rate across all forms of email marketing is between 20 and 25%. So if you're getting 40% on the low end, that's amazing. You're really connecting with your customers. They really want to do that. So membership sites are really successful there. And the conversion rates are pretty outstanding. We're seeing between 12 and 26% across a bunch of different campaigns. A good conversion rate in email marketing is considered between 5 and 7%. So we're more than double that on the low end and many multiples of that on the high end. So let's compare this with average stores on WordPress. So this includes easy digital downloads, WooCommerce, all of them. So the higher performing stores are getting between 10 and 19%. Still, that's really good, but membership sites are doing better. The emails are having really high open rates, very similar, and their conversion rates are good, but they're not as good as membership sites. I had 2 stores that I was using on Recapture to sort of dog food this whole thing as we were doing our WordPress migration. And when I had these plugins here, I was seeing between 13 and 18% recovery on those 2 EDD sites. So the bottom line here is that Recapture really works for WordPress and membership sites. And what you see here below is another membership site. I pulled out one of their conversion stats on here. And so they're doing pretty well, right? And again, this is a platform that we started in 2015. We support a wide variety of platforms on WordPress. Everything that I've talked about here today is covered and more. So we have additional things like you can do SMS marketing, you can do pop-ups, you can do broadcast email campaigns, not just abandoned carts. You can also do things like win-backs and review reminders and stuff like that. So there's lots more to this whole thing, but I hope that gives you at least a pretty good idea of what Recapture is capable of and why this problem is important and something that you could do to really boost your membership site's revenue with pretty much no work. This thing takes about 5 minutes to install and set up. We have default content to get you started, and I'm happy to help you personalize those campaigns to better fit your particular membership site's needs. So with that, let's dive into some questions.
Hey, Dave, that was fantastic. Yes, if anyone has questions, now is a great time for you to drop them in the chat. If you drop them in the chat, I'll be able to see them. There is a delay between what Dave and I see in the chat, and what's streamed to YouTube and Facebook. So drop them in now so we make sure we see them. I did want to say, hold on, let me turn on a couple things here. I am going to turn on, there's a little banner that's added to the bottom of the screen. So that'll, Dave set up a landing page for everyone who's watching this webinar. It's sort of at the bottom of the screen. So if you want to see Recapture and Dave, I apologize. What is all included in that landing page there?
Basically, that landing page tells you a little bit about Recapture, why you want to install it, what we can do for your site. At the very bottom of that page, there's a button that basically will take you over to WordPress.org, and it'll show you where the plugin is located. But you can also, I mean, most people that run WordPress sites, you're familiar with exactly how to install a plugin. So you could go to the plugins dashboard, click add new, and search for Recapture. You'll find the version for Paid Memberships Pro on there, no problem.
Perfect. So everything you need to get started with Recapture.
Yep.
So I'll leave that on the bottom. And then we will have a replay. One of the questions that we get asked, that people get asked in every webinar ever is, will there be a replay? There will be a replay on YouTube. So if you look up the Stranger Studios YouTube page, you'll see the replay there. It's also what if you're on YouTube right now, that's where that is. And I just wanted, okay, so I have a note here. I just wanted to editorialize for a second before we get into questions. My favorite part, Dave, was reminders work. All the things that you just said about, I have this fear of, I don't want to speak too much. I don't want to be too loud. I don't want to annoy people. We're so worried about that we don't send people emails when they actually need them. And we just ran a birthday sale a week or two ago. And every time we sent an email, people bought because even though we already emailed them previously in the week, they were busy. They couldn't find their credit card. There's all these reasons that people have to not purchase, and you send them a reminder, and then they purchase. So I just want the reminders do work, and I have those fears. But if you push through it a little bit, you'll see that number one, people don't unsubscribe, and two, that they work and they bring in revenue. And one more thing I just wanted to add before we get to questions. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. It's one of my favorite quotes of all time is like, you just got to try. You just got to try. And if you get 10%, that's a huge win. It's 10% that you would not have gotten if you didn't try. So,
yeah. And if you only get 5%, I mean, that's 5% you didn't have before you started sending the emails. Like, why is that bad? Like, that's good. And you can optimize it from there. You can work. If you get a smaller number, you can still work with that, right?
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Okay, so we talked about revenue that you can recover. One of the questions here from Bet on YouTube is, what is the average percentage for cart recovery? And I think maybe instead of thinking about revenue, is it 5% of carts? Is that the right way to think about it?
Close. So the average percent, it's a great question, Bet, and it's very common to want to ask that. So the average percent across all carts, all platforms, is usually between 8 and 12%. It kind of varies depending on the vertical you're looking at, depending on the audience that you're going to. Usually what we're shooting for is 10%. It's a nice round number, but it's 10% of your gross revenue. So if you're making $10,000 a month, we're looking to add an additional $1,000 a month to that. So you would make a total of $11,000 a month.
Got it. And then, Bet, I do see another question from you about a PayPal button. I'm not quite sure what the question is. So if you want to rephrase that and drop it in the chat so that it's a little bit more clear, I'll put that up on the screen. Let me scroll down here because I had another one. Okay, so Rolo here says, is there any technique you suggest to get emails for the future users? And I think what he's saying is there's no way to capture emails until you get to payment. So is there a way to get emails or be able to reach people before they get to that payment screen? I think that's the question.
Yes, I believe so as well. And Rolo, you have captured the essence of one of the great struggles. So Recapture has a couple of things going for it here. So one is we can capture an email pretty much anywhere on your website. So if you have a header bar, you've got a toaster widget, you've got a sidebar where you let people subscribe to an email list or something, or a pop-up, we can grab an email from that. Doesn't have to be from Recapture, doesn't have to be from any particular vendor. We've got a JavaScript library, it's optimized, it loads later in the page, so we're not impacting your page speed. It doesn't affect your overall performance on your website, but it will listen for those events. Now, with that said, not everybody has one of those things that they like. So we have a couple of options for you on Recapture. One is we have an add to cart pop-up. So what happens is if they click, they're on your site, they're looking at the membership options, they click a plan and they say add to cart. We can have a pop-up that shows up right at that time. That's the time of highest purchase intent. If they're clicking on that button, they are pretty interested at that point. At the very least, their curiosity is piqued. So you basically got to take advantage of that. We'll put up a little pop-up. You can say, enter your email address to add this to your cart. Not everybody will, but the serious people do. So it's basically a way to get that at that time. Or you can also use we have standard set of pop-ups that you can do a lot of different things with. So you could just do, if they've viewed a certain number of pages on your site, create a pop-up and then have them enter their email just to get on your newsletter. Or you could we have a coupon reveal. If you put your email in, you can give them a discount code at that point. Stuff like that. So any of those techniques work to collect the emails. What I typically see when somebody is doing abandoned cart email collection on their site, when they're under optimized, we're getting less than 25% of the total carts that are abandoned with emails. When we get to the optimized, I see between 25 and 33%. Sometimes we get as high as 50. Like if you require login to your site, those sites are awesome because basically you will never have an abandoned cart for somebody you don't know about. If they have to log into your site, you've got them, right? Those sites are unfortunately very rare. But if you're doing a membership site, you probably have a higher percentage of doing something like that. So you can use that to your advantage to know who it is that is going to upgrade to this payment plan by getting them started out on lower free tiers, but they still require registration. Once you require registration, we know who they are, we've got their email, and now you can use that as an abandoned cart reminder series.
Awesome, Dave. And by the way, Rolo just commented that he appreciates the answer. So I think you nailed that one. I have one from Jason here, which is, so I think you've already answered the first part. How are the emails captured technically? I think the part I'm a little bit more interested in is what are the privacy concerns around abandoned carts and emailing? And GDPR is this thing that hangs out in my brain that I have to spend brain power on, but I don't really understand it. So what are the privacy concerns with abandoned cart software?
Yeah, so that's a great question, Jason. And you're absolutely right. Privacy is a big deal. And you've got to make sure that all of this information is properly protected. I don't care if you're the European Union or the United States or Canada or Australia. Everybody's got their own separate privacy laws. We have gone to great lengths to make sure that we are covered on all of those here. In particular, GDPR probably has the pickiest stuff to go through on that. But basically, when we are capturing that data in Recapture, first of all, we're integrated into WordPress. So if somebody does a GDPR request for a subject data request, a subject removal request, any of that stuff, we get automated emails on our side. We will generate that and send it to you, the store owner. So because usually what happens is somebody says, I want you to forget about me completely on all things. And it doesn't matter which plugins you have installed, all of them get that notice if they're GDPR aware. So we integrate into all of that. We'll get you that data within the legally required time frame. We'll send it to you, and then you can package that all up and send it to your users. As far as Recapture goes, because we are GDPR and all of the other ones compliant, Castle, CAN-SPAM, I don't even remember the name of the Australian one at this point. But we're required to have our data stored in encrypted places, and that has to be protected, and that those who access it are highly limited, and that they can only do so for certain reasons. So by using Recapture, we're helping to minimize your privacy risk exposure here because we're handling all of those gross details here so you don't have to. But yes, privacy is a big deal with us, and we take it very seriously.
Awesome. Let me take that one down. And so I got a follow-up from Bet here, which I think I can answer. And actually, Dave, well, let me ask you this. Are there any differences that you've seen with payment gateways, or does Recapture not see that data with, maybe Stripe or something with a credit card converts better than something like a PayPal button?
Yeah, so this kind of stuff, this is more of a generic checkout concern as opposed to a Recapture concern. So it might be that on your checkout page that you're finding that one payment option is maybe a little bit smoother than the other one. And the smoother ones, or the more, not even necessarily the smoother ones, because PayPal could in theory be smoother, but for whatever reason, I've seen real friction with people not wanting to check out if you present PayPal as the first one. Sometimes they just prefer the credit cards. When I was doing the two plugins, I saw, and it was weird because it was country specific too. So if you were in Europe, there was a strong preference for PayPal and a definite disdain for the credit card. But if you went to the US, Canada, Australia, it was flipped. They didn't like PayPal, but they really liked the credit card. So, for something like that, it's not really a consideration inside of Recapture, but it might be a consideration that you want to try to figure out based on your browser. You'll get some information about your customer coming in the browser. Maybe you can figure out based on the country, which should be the default option to show them first based on that preference. And you could figure this out probably from your own data. Look at your own customers and see what did they check out with, what's their home country. And maybe that's the option to present there first. Or, maybe you have to just look at your payment options and say, one of these is so much harder than the other ones, it's not worth it unless you have a significant percentage.
Yep.
Those are that's a tough question to answer, but generic e-commerce considerations.
Yeah, so I'll drop this in the chat, but I would recommend PayPal Express, our PayPal Express add-on, because it lets you have PayPal and Stripe in the checkout, and people can choose whatever works better for them. I think that's just
great.
Generally the best. I'll also just from I know plenty of people who have had a problem with their payment gateway, and I'm talking about like when I worked at WooCommerce ages ago, and it's just always good to have like two options for people to check out. So if one option has a problem, you have a backup. So PayPal Express, I just linked to it.
But not too many options. You give them too many options, they hate it. That becomes friction at that point. That becomes the complicated checkout form, right?
Yes.
You have 5 different ways to pay: Braintree, Stripe, Venmo, PayPal. It's just overload. Don't do that.
So I think that's all the questions. I do just want to point out that we do actually have a number of blog posts on our site about free membership levels. So if you just go to our site and search for free membership, you'll find a bunch of blog posts there about it. Dave, I do have that demo site up. We have a few minutes. Do you want to take us through the demo, or are we good? We're going to have a lazy Thursday.
Well, let's just take a couple of minutes here. I'll show you a couple of things about Recapture that are kind of interesting. Especially one of them about the live cart feed, which I think is something that you don't normally get. So what Patrick is showing you here, this is our live demo at recapture.io/demo. And you, of course, can go take a drive of this here on your own at any time. Everything that we're showing you here is live customer data. This is a real customer on Recapture. They've been with us since like 2016 or something like that. And we've basically anonymized their data, so there's no personal information that's been exposed here. You don't even really see what they're really selling, but the data of everything here is actually real. So this is what their abandoned cart is actually looking like. They're actually getting 11.6% in the last 7 days, and they've recovered almost $12,000. So they're kicking ass and taking names for sure. All right, so basically in Recapture here, we want to present you with some useful data about what is it Recapture's doing, what's happening on your site. So this analytics page kind of gives you an idea of that. The thing I want to show you, click on the carts, Patrick.
Mm-hmm.
So this right here is probably a view that most people never get to see on their site. This is a live cart feed. So this is exactly what's going on the site right now for basically the recent past, we'll call it. It's hard to say it's like a particular time frame because we just are kind of tracking this as a live feed of carts coming through. On the left-hand column, you'll see it says active. These are carts that are actually being managed by customers on the site right now. And this is real data. So if you want to see what the heck is going on your site, what things are being added to carts, what are they doing? How long do they stay on the site? Which products are they browsing with? This is how you can do it. You can install Recapture for free, and you get this live cart feed at no cost. So you can get some real insight as to what your customers are doing. This is in addition to all the other things that you could figure out on your WordPress site. So Google Analytics and hot heat maps and stuff like that. This actually shows you customer historic behavior. So from the first column here, carts can move into one of the other 3 columns depending on what they do. So if they haven't done anything and they just put items in their cart, but they didn't give us an email somewhere, they'll end up in the abandoned column. If they did give us an email, they'll end up in the recapturable column. So these are the people we can send emails to. And if they've if somebody has actually completed a purchase, whether Recapture helped them or not, it doesn't matter. We need to track all the purchases. Then it'll end up in the converted page or the converted column. And scroll up a little bit on that, Patrick. Let's see if there's an assisted badge that's visible.
I saw one down here.
Right here, yes. So if Recapture is helping, then you'll see this assisted badge right here. And that assisted badge means that Recapture went out, sent some email, they opened it, clicked on it, they completed the thing. But go to the third column there and pick one pick Nori Elliott. All right. So in this case here, now we get to see what's going on with Nori's cart, or actually the name keeps changing here because of the anonymizer. Sorry. This is now Burley Hillier. And Burley created their cart about an hour ago. They abandoned it 20 minutes ago, and they've put in this Fortis watch on here. So they're going to get 3 abandoned cart emails. So again, this is the RPC sequence we're talking about. And this gives you the timing of those as well. So you can see the exact emails that they're going to get, or you can go to the campaign and take a look at it. So even if you're not ready to do the abandoned carts, which I would still strongly recommend doing, you can give Recapture a try here, install the plugin, and get this visibility into your customers right now, today, just to see what they're doing. And that's incredibly valuable.
Awesome. Dave, this looks super cool. I love this live cart view. You took us through a little demo of our own site earlier, and it's just fantastic. So let me turn this off somewhere. There's a button. There we go. So just a final reminder to everyone, there will be a replay of all this on the Stranger Studios YouTube page. Dave, thank you so much for your expertise. I learned a lot, and I saw some comments coming in thanking you for your expertise and also for answering questions.
Well, thank you all for coming. I really appreciate you taking a bit of your time. Oh, wait, we haven't finished. I told all the people, staying to the end, you get a special thing. So we need to get, I need to share my screen again. Hold on.
Please.
Hold on. Almost made a liar of myself. How rude. Oh, hold on. That is not the one. We already figured out this one was a greased pole to hell, so we're not doing that one. All right. So let me know when that shows up in the live feed here.
There you go.
All right. No, Inception. There we go.
Windows.
Yeah, infinite windows. All right. Now, infinite windows go bye-bye. So we did the Q&A. Special deal for anybody who attended this webinar here today. We will give you 60 days. That's 2 months for free on Recapture to try it out. That is all the features there for our abandoned carts, the review reminders, and the win-back emails. How do you get this? So this is something you're going to want to write down. You sign up at the link you were given, recapture.io. You can find that in the stream. Contact me after you've signed up. You can do it on live chat. You can send me an email. My email is david@recapture.io. Not hard to figure out. Just tell me that you were on this webinar. Magic will happen. I will give you 60 days for free. Normally it's just 2 weeks. We'll make it 2 months. So again, thank you all for your time. Thank you all for coming. And I hope this was super valuable to everybody. Please reach out if you have further questions. Go ahead and write down my contact information out there. I've got lots of ways I can be reached on the interwebs, including Twitter and email. So thank you again, Patrick. Thank you again, Kim.
That's it from us. And have a great day, everyone. Recapture some abandoned carts and get paid. Bye-bye.